too. So, hey everybody, this is Tatyana Sturm with the Storck Team and Exit Realty Denver Tech Center. I have one of my inspectors. I've been using him for several years, Doug Krueck with Pillar to Post. And he's jumping on with us right now. Actually just got done with an inspection. So he's coming from his car, but I sure appreciate your time, Doug, for just giving us some pointers on this time of year. This time of year here in Colorado, now October is generally the best month to be blowing out your sprinklers right before we have a big freeze. Obviously, most people know that they have to get that done so their pipes don't freeze, their sprinkler system, because that can cause a lot of problems when the weather warms up. But let's talk about a few other things that maybe, well, what I see, and I know you see, people neglect to do in addition to blowing out their sprinklers this time of year. So one of the things that we were just talking about before we officially started the video was the, you had mentioned, what is that, the indoor, the siphon?
Yeah, the anti-siphon spigot on the exterior hose bib.
Okay, so explain to people what that is.
Well, so so you have the exterior hose bib where you hook your hose up to the house, okay? When it gets to be cold weather, you want to disconnect that hose anyway, no matter what kind of faucet you have. The anti-siphon spigot, it has a little plastic cap on it, if you will, that sits on top, and what that does is it holds water from exiting the house. So it holds the water inside the house, and the water doesn't collect in the spigot and freeze and crack it that way. So it's just an extra, it's an added precaution. It's required on houses now. It wasn't required until about 5 years ago or so, maybe a little longer. But we find that those are very, very effective. If you have the little basic twist knob, if you will, you're going to be prone to water collecting in that little 2 or 3 inches outside the house and freezing and breaking your pipes that way.
Okay, and then you mentioned also disconnecting your hoses. I know a lot of people forget to do that, but that can cause a problem too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you get a drip, I mean, there's all kinds of different, it's just, the best way to remember that is, doesn't matter what time of year, if you're not using the hose, just disconnect it. And then that way you don't forget. Right now, like last night, we had a slight frost. I think it got down to 30 degrees at my house. So that's where you need to be in the back of your mind, that these kind of things can start happening soon. You know, weather in Colorado changes quickly. So you really want to be diligent about that. And about the time of the first frost is when all this stuff needs to be just gone through.
Yeah, and I mean, I would say probably at least half of the homes that I sell, whether I'm representing the seller or the buyer, it seems like has cracked hose bibs.
Oh, often, yeah. Handles and the whole, yeah, absolutely. The thing that I see probably the most as far as the sprinkler system goes is the anti-siphon mechanism. Those break often. They have a little copper bell cap a lot of times, and those will get broken. And what happens is that water collects inside there, and because you have a higher volume of water when it does hard freeze, then it puts more pressure on the sides of that.
Okay.
So that's something to be very timely about, is to, when you get your sprinkler system blown out, that it clears out that anti-siphon mechanism as well.
Okay. Anything else in terms of sprinkler systems or the sprinkler box or that's outside? Anything that should be done in regards to that for preparation for winter and colder temperatures?
Well, the reason that it's important to blow the system out is because you don't want any water sitting in any low-lying portions of pipe. A lot of the pipe is plastic, so you get a low spot, and the water expands when it freezes, and then the pipe being brittle because it's cold, that's when it's prone to cracking. So blowing it out is an important extra step. Um, some systems you can like just by gravity empty the system out, but if you're not sure, it's better to have it blown out with air pressure.
Yeah, it's a lot less expensive than having to repair it in the future.
Right. That is.
I had a question come in from Pam. She just said that they sell outside faucet covers. Do you recommend that or not?
Not really. The outside faucet covers don't really do very much. They protect for just a few degrees, and so they're not terribly effective. If you wanted to cover anything on the outside, it would be that anti-siphon mechanism, just because to protect water from getting in there and freezing after you've had it blown out. But the spigot themselves, it's not necessary.
Okay. And one other thing, and I've seen this happen, but during the winter, just because here in Colorado we can have such drastic temperature changes, and this is kind of getting a little bit off the subject of sprinklers, but we can have moisture, and then the snow melts, and then not all the snow melts, and then we get another snow or another freeze. And so what I've experienced in the past is some buildup in some closed you have your gutters on top of the house, but then the gutters come down, and a lot of those systems have the flow out from the house underneath the ground and outside. And I've seen those fill up, get clogged, and then freeze. And then, of course, that's expanding and creates a huge mess. What are some tips right now that people can avoid that? Because obviously it's fall. Cleaning the gutters is one thing, but if you're not, obviously some of those things you can't see, right? If they're in those, I don't even know what they're called, tubes or something, the gutter tubes, or
Well, they're downspout extensions.
Downspout extensions, yeah.
Feeder is a common term. So there's a couple different things. One that you have to be really careful about is that a lot of those are what are called they exit to daylight is what they call it. And what they do is they go out into the yard and then just terminate. And the reasoning is that they just go out far enough away from the house that they're not going to get filled up with normal rainfall. But what happens there is then they get the leaves and the sticks and so on go down there, and so that pipe shortens up. Okay. And the best way to prevent that is they sell little caps. They go down inside the downspout from your gutters, and they have a screen on them, and that'll prevent debris, sticks and leaves going down your downspout. And the other thing that you can do is a lot of times what we see is that the ground settles, okay? And so then that downspout and that pipe separates. Am I trying to demonstrate there? Separates, and so then you have a gap, and things are prone to fall in that way. So if you start to get a gap between that downspout and the extension that's going underneath the concrete, they sell sleeves to take up that gap so that you're not getting extra debris falling down there. And those are a nice bit of protection that you can give yourself.
Okay. Any other tips now that people can be doing to prepare their house, like outdoor wise for winter, that you can think of that? Oh, actually, one thing that just came to my mind is what about like hairline cracks and things like that in the concrete?
Well, so what's going to be really important there is if your house is north facing, south facing. Uh, it matters a lot when it comes to concrete, because a north facing house, the water is going to get down in the cracks and then freeze again and tear up your concrete. Whereas south facing, it's going to melt faster, it's going to dry out faster, and it's not quite as critical. One very important thing about concrete in the wintertime is ice melt. Ice melt is actually very bad for concrete. Tears it up really. I mean, anytime you see pock marks that look like somebody hit it with a hammer, that's from ice melt.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll tear up a concrete quicker than anything. The best thing to do for your concrete is actually to just get out there and shovel it as quickly as you can, and don't let the ice and snow sit on it and work its way into those cracks. If you do have a crack, they sell liquid concrete sealer. Comes in a tube, semi-viscous, Lowe's, Home Depot. Good maintenance for your walkway.
Yeah, because over time those cracks can
right. And the other thing about that is the water gets underneath the cracks, and that dirt gets soft. You drive your car over it and cracks your concrete.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get pits and divots, things like that. So yeah, that was one thing that I was gonna, when you asked that, is north facing, keep the snow away from the house the best you can. But the biggest thing that I see almost every single day on almost every single house is drainage around the house. You get you get where it can't go anywhere, or it goes towards the house and it freezes. Then you start getting structural problems, because that water sitting against the house, freezing, melting, and it'll tear up your siding. It'll get in there, damage your foundation, so on. Even though it seems like it's just dirt, it makes a difference in the wintertime. Absolutely.
Well, and that year round too, right?
Yeah.
Well, you make sure that the water's always flowing away from the house at all times, pretty much. Yeah, I would agree with you. I see that on majority of homes, and it happens over time. It erodes and weather, and just something you have to really be conscientious of as a homeowner.
You have to have purpose with it, because what happens is that, say it only settles a 1/16 of an inch each year. Well, you're in the house 20 years, you're an inch and a half of settlement, and that's a lot of sloping towards the house. So you have to make a conscious effort to be aware of it. And then something else I see periodically that kind of goes along with that is ice damming. And what that is when there's a portion of your roof that's north facing, the ice and snow melts up high, it runs down into the north facing shadow and refreezes. And you have to be really careful about that, because the ice will get behind the siding and then damage it that way. It'll actually pull the siding away from the house.
I had that happen, and I got a leak in my roof from it. And we were trying to figure out where the hell this leak was coming from, and then finally determined that was it.
Yeah. So. They sell ice melt cables for that. You just lay them on your roof. They get up to 70, 75 degrees, something like that. So they're not a fire hazard. They just keep the ice melted away so that you don't run into any of those kind of problems.
Yeah. I have to send Aaron over to get some of those this year.
Right.
All right. Well, thank you, Doug, for your time. I think all this information is truly valuable to homeowners, especially right now in October, and we head into the colder seasons. It's just really important to do this preventative maintenance on your home. You'll be a much happier person when the weather warms up. Trust me. So I really appreciate your time, and between your crazy schedule, I know you're probably running to another inspection right now, but thank you, Doug, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.